I had an old fire extinguisher, but I wanted to make it look even older. Welcome back to Tiny House and Off-Grid Resources, the channel where we repair, recycle and refurbish instead of replace. I think this one's about 50 years old. It's from an old primary school and got replaced with more modern equipment. So the first job for me to do this is get it clean. I want those labels to stay there. I like the labels. I'm using sugar soap to soften all of the muck and crud that's all over it. And now I'm going to spend 20 minutes with a wire brush and some sandpaper and a scraper, giving the thing a clean and getting anything out of the crevices, because although I want it to look old, I don't want it to look this kind of old. So what I'm going to be doing is making it look 40 years, 50 years older. Some nice medium grade sandpaper up to the edge of the stickers. I do want to keep the stickers, and I want to keep them with their battle scars. The sticker on the top is the name of the people who supplied it and service it. I think that was just a paper sticker, and it's suffered over the years, but it's a little bit readable in places, so I'm going to leave it there. This fire extinguisher has been serviced a good few times. It's had its top taken off a few times. You can see bruises and knocks where it's been bashed open. It's got a few splashes of paint on it where people have repainted the walls behind it and not moved it. It's full of character, but as I say, what I'm going to do with this thing is give it the old patina and make it look like dirty old brass that's been around for 70 or 80 years, languishing in an old workshop. I'll get this hose off. That looks far too modern in nylon braiding, so I'll give that some treatment further down the line. Taking the hose off gives me a chance to get into the crud in behind it, so I'll give that a quick wire brush and get the fly poop from out in behind it. Scuff the entire thing up with 120 sandpaper, and now I'm going to give the whole thing a wipe down with a damp cloth to remove any dust. Water is a really good solvent, but only for certain things, just like terps is a solvent for other things, and denatured alcohol is a solvent for yet other things. Top tip: if you're cleaning up blood from a crime scene, water's the way to go. Don't try using terps or meths, just won't work. Put a bit of iodine in the water and even the forensic boys will have trouble picking it up. Next job, mask up those labels so that they can be saved. I'm using a removable grade of masking tape because the white masking tape, it does stick better, but you'll find that if you leave it on for a couple of days, especially outside, it will stick and you won't get it off. This stuff is highly removable. I don't think I'll be quite so fast on this label. I want to keep those raggedy edges, so I'll fold them in and then just segment the masking tape and protect this label underneath. Yeah, this is working out alright. One of the good things about good quality masking tape is that you can see through it, so you can see the edges of the label, so I can replicate that slightly rounded corner, and I can also cut the masking tape away where the battle scars are, where the label's been bashed on things and has a small piece missing. So earlier I wiped it down with water to remove the fly poop and blood, but now I'm going to give it a wipe down with two-way thinners. Two-way thinners is a universal thinner that can be used in enamel paint and also certain types of car paints as well, making it a very useful thing to have around the workshop. Great for removing grease, although if you linger it will take the glue off the masking, so I'll be careful around the masking, but it'll be good for removing anything else that's been left after a wash down with water and sugar soap. This is the final wipe down before the painting, so I'm being really fastidious. Give it a good rub behind the ears, clean out the belly button fluff, and make sure there's no toe jam down the bottom. I'm going to use a variety of paints now from spray cans, so I'll drop a cloth down, make sure that I don't paint anything else that I've got stashed behind it. Being careful not to touch the body in case I've got any grease on my fingers, only touch the handle. And now I'm going to use etch primer. This is a CRC product, but other people make it as well. It is mildly acidic and it etches into the surface that it's painted onto, so it's very good on fiberglass and aluminium. Because I restore Land Rovers, I always keep etch primer around because they have aluminium panels. If you paint aluminium or fiberglass without an etch primer, you'll be painting it again very soon. It just drops off. It takes a bit of a water blast or a serious knock to get the paint to come away, but it will come away in great flakes if you were to hit it with the water blaster. So you only need a mere wisp of this stuff. You don't need a full coat. All you need to do is make sure that you've got all surfaces covered. So the paint I'm using now is classic metallic shiny brass, but I don't want shiny brass. This is only going to be a starting point. Oh, it's childproof. Hang on. Ah, got it. I like to warm my cans up slightly by putting them in hot water, and that warms the air up inside, which puffs them up to a higher pressure and gives you a slightly higher pressure at the nozzle, so you get a finer deposition when you're painting. You get a lovely finish if you heat your paint up. So I don't need a lot of this. I'm just going to go around and make sure that I've got an even cover all over. And then I'm going to leave it to dry until tomorrow. It's now the next day and the paint's now dry, and what I'm going to do is go back to the etch primer that I had. You saw how the etch primer had a green finish. Well, I'm satisfied that that green is going to look a little like the patina of aged brass. Now, I don't want to go full bronze, which is almost black. I just want to add a little bit of character to something that looks fresh and clean. I don't like that. I want this to look 70 or 80 years old. So what I'm going to do with this green etch primer is I'm going to spray very lightly and almost let it fall over the item. and just see what kind of effect I get. If it's not strong enough, over there I've got some old green fence stain. It's water-based fence stain. I might put that in the spray gun and spray a little of that over. But I'm going to try this first. Let's see how we go. You can see what I'm doing, but you probably can't see the effect it's having. What it's doing is just taking the edge off that shininess. I'll keep going. I'm reasonably happy with this, with how this is going. All I want to do is kill the shine. I don't want to make the thing look like it's 200 years old and dug out of a hole in the ground. I want it to look like it's been sitting in a dusty warehouse for 70 years. And I think I'm about there. The other parts that I painted was the nozzle. You can see the difference there between what I haven't painted and what I have. This is a nylon plastic hose. I've painted it with etch primer, and what I'm going to do now is get some absolute flat black and paint the hose so that it looks like a rubber hose. And then once I'm sure that the paint's dried, I'll reassemble it, peel off the labels, and we'll see what we've got. I wanted to keep the company sticker on here, and I wanted it to look as old as it did originally, so I'm pleased with the way that's looking. Peeling masking off. Always peel back towards the masking, never away from the masking, because you could peel away fresh paint on the edges. So always keep a slight inwards pull. Now this is the flattest black paint that I have. I find that if you buy test pots come as an absolute flat base, and they're also a big saving on buying a real wall paint because it's not as high a quality, but it is absolutely flat. Now you'll see that as I start painting this, it'll come out as a sort of a blue colour, but as it dries it will go to an absolute flat black, like a chalkboard. Right, now comes the making it look old and dirty part. In one of these, looks like this one here, we've got some green fence stain. So I'm going to get one brushful of green fence stain. I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. So, I've actually got a cracked paint container, obviously, because I've got wet paint. So all I want is a tiny amount of paint on the brush like that. I'm going to put that into here. Right, and now I'm going to add about 3 times the amount of water, so probably almost half an egg cup full of water. Okay. And we're going to mix that in and make a really watery green puddle. perfect. That's exactly what I want. I can't go too far wrong with that. If it's not enough, I can put a second coat on. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to liberally brush this over the entire thing. Get it into the corners, into the cracks, and then I'm going to rub it off. What's the point, you may well ask? Well, it will build up in any of the recesses and start to look like the verdigris, I think it's called, verdigris? The patina that builds up on real copper and brass. So I'll now find a cloth and we'll wipe that off the tops, leaving it in the cracks, and it will dry. And I think I'm going to have to put a second application on. Yeah, touch stronger. You can't go wrong when you're doing this because there are no rules. You decide what's right. I'm going to get another brush full of paint and mix it in with this. Just that much. By misting the etch primer over it after I'd painted it the brass colour, it's given something for this to stick to. Yeah, you see that's a little stronger. That's going to stay where I put it in these corners. Right. We'll wipe that off the highlights, the main parts, leaving it around the edges and in any of the folds. I went through a bit of a steampunk phase a year or two ago and made some items of clothing. Like I made a top hat out of a yoga mat glued together with a hot melt glue gun, and then painted it to look like it was made out of rusty steel plate from a ship with big heavy rivets, and it had a wee circuit board from something that I salvaged from the dump on the side with a cord, a lead that went from that into the side of my head. Yeah. Perhaps I should still wear that. Oh, this is good. This is good. It's staining in. I'm going to get the hot air gun onto that. Because I'm so impatient. This is a bit hard on the solar, but I'm only using it for a short time. It's rained like crazy here for the last 4 days, so my batteries are a bit low, so I don't want to go silly with things that generate heat or use the compressor or anything like that. Okay, one more of those around the seams and things. I'm going to bring you up closer in a minute so you can have a really good look at this. It's as subtle as the B in the word subtle, but when I bring you close you'll see that it's worth it. All I'm doing now is rubbing off any obvious dribble marks, because we don't want it to look like it's a liquid that's been applied. We want it to look like it's age. So any sharp edges I'll soften off by giving it a rub. Any build-ups I'll leave there because I want them there. As it dries out, it will lose its shine completely and go a dull green. So there we go. Just looking for sharp edges of runs or anything like that, and I'll rub those off. Right, I'm going to call that done. I'll put the hose back on, then I'm going to let you have a look, alright? Let's have a look at some of these details. You'll see as I move in closer how the green patina that makes it look aged and tired comes through. It has a slight three-dimensional effect thanks to the etch prime that I speckled on from a distance underneath. If we look into the grooves and hollows, you'll see the green paint that's still drying off, and I think also down on this bottom seam. There you go, we've got a bit of it showing up around the bottom seam as well, just making it look aged. The raggedy edges of the label are still there with the battle scars. I think that this is going to look great up there. Oh, by the way, the bricks, they're foam rubber. I'll show you how to do that in this video here.